with the Zoom recording, just to let you know that this meeting will be recorded for the minutes and will be broadcasted online later on. If you're not happy with this, please leave the meeting now. And with that formality over, we'll move on to the agenda. And the first item on the agenda is to elect a chairman for the ensuing year. You've all had nomination forms, and following that process, I can confirm, well, in fact, we have had one nomination, and that's the Councillor Elwyn Edwards. So can I welcome you to the chair, Elwyn? Thank you very much. And thanks to all of the members as well. I'll try and do justice to this position in the next year. The second item is to elect a vice chairman for the ensuing year. Once again, we've had one nomination, and that is the Councillor Ivor Glyn-Lloyd. Is Ivor present at the moment? His name is on the screen. Welcome, Ivor, and congratulations. Item 3, apologies. Anwen? I haven't received any apologies. I'm not sure if I've received an apology from Tim Jones. I know that Gethin has apologised. He rang me last night. Okay, thank you. No one else, I don't think. Declaration of interest, item 4. Anyone? If not, on to the minutes. Will anybody propose that they're correct? Will anybody second that? Alwyn has seconded it. Everybody in agreement? Pretty quiet this morning. Any matters arising from the minutes? If not, okay. Owen Wyn has his hand up. Owen? You're on mute, Owen. I was just voting to confirm the minutes, that's all. Okay, thank you. On to item 6. Thank you, Chairman. This is a report to show where the members can sit on the inspection panels. If you're happy with that procedure, you can see the recommendation. It seems to work well at the moment. Everybody happy with that? Can we have a show of hands, please? Anybody against? No? Sarah, did you want to say anything? No. Okay. Thank you. Public speaking protocol in the planning committee. Owen Wyn, did you want to say anything? Oh, well, John. Yes, Chair. The protocol has been in existence for quite a few years now. It was just an opportunity, really, following on from Owen's suggestion in the last meeting or the meeting before then, that it may well be a good idea for us to revisit it to remind us of the content. So this is what you've got in front of you today. It hasn't changed very much at all from the previous version. That's because I feel it works well. The feedback that we get from the speakers is that they're happy with the procedure as is. The applicants seem happy, and I believe that the committee is as well. So I haven't made many changes because of that. It's quite a simple procedure, 1 for, 1 against the application, and the possibility of getting somebody from the community or town council to speak as well. So the only changes really is the addition in paragraph 11 from to mention the virtual meetings that we now have. It states there that any speakers will come in at the beginning of the item and then will leave the meeting at the end of the item. Well, we're following the virtual planning committee. That is, they're not public meetings. Once they do become public, and that's going to happen soon, hopefully, obviously, they will be able to remain in the committee for the rest of the committee if they wish to do so. And anybody else who wants to watch the committee or listen in. So the recommendation is to approve the appended protocol as amended. Does anybody want to come in there? Yes, I think it would be timely because I have given Jonathan several comments on the paper. Some of the comments relate to better, well, improve the understanding of the members regarding why we're doing this. When it comes to the more specific guidelines for the applicants as well as the agents and the public, perhaps we need to fine tune that document a bit. So I would propose an improvement that the second part is included in the recommendation that the director can make amendments to the protocol in consultation with the chairman. As far as the background is concerned, I think it's important that the members understand at one time the RTPA recommended that there was a statutory protocol across Wales. What Welsh government decided to do was to recommend a voluntary protocol in 2017. The WLGA consulted on that, but nothing came of it as far as I know. I haven't seen the update on that. But obviously, there are some authorities who they've chosen not to give the opportunity to speak. So it's important for us to understand why we give the public the right to speak. And I would recommend that we should be clear why our aims are in allowing the public to speak. I saw a leaflet from Port Talbot Castellnedd Council suggesting that there should be 3 headings why we permit it in order to ensure fairness, secondly, for transparency reasons, and thirdly, to ensure consistency. We're not actually stating that, but I think that's the foundation of why we allow the public to speak on any item. With regard to practical things, I do think that there is content in section 10 which gives a guidance on what the procedure is, but I think a flowchart would be useful. That is, the chair introduces, the officer gives the background, and then there's an opportunity for people to speak, and then we have questions at the discretion of the chairman. One more thing that I think people assume that the public assume that the committee meets on Wednesday. At the moment, it states that applications should be in by the Friday to speak publicly. So we need clarification on that. One more thing that I did raise with John was with regard to presenting a video. Some of you who are on Gwynedd Council will know that Gwynedd permits people to provide a video, and I, wearing my agent's hat, I did that. That is, gave a video presentation. I think there is a benefit to doing so, and flexibility to do so should be allowed because the applicant may not be able to join the committee live. So I would like John to consider that. I also think as a result of the decision that we made regarding the person having the right to stay on after the actual item. If you do remember in the last meeting or the one before then, we did ask the representative from NRW to come back to answer some questions. And I think we need to make it clear that there is an opportunity to do so, but we do that at the discretion of the chairman if they permit that. Otherwise, the practice varies from council to council with regard to how much time is allowed. Personally, as somebody who's been on the committee and on the other end of the stick, 3 minutes, I think is suitable for purpose. It's a bit challenging if you do have a complex case to present, but 3 is better than 5 or say 8 minutes. That's some councils permit. With those suggestions, the only addition is that we give the director permission to provide the leaflets that's available to the public. Jonathan, did you want to come in there? Yes, thank you, Owain, for those comments beforehand. That gave me an opportunity to run through them, and I'm happy to incorporate all of the comments that you've made and the elements regarding the video, that they can present a 3-minute video if they wish to do so. If the IT guys are happy with that, I think it's a good thing. The other issues regarding why we actually allow the public to speak is a good idea. We do send out a simple leaflet to the objectors and the applicant just to explain the speaking protocol, and that can be included in the leaflet that we send out. And so yes, happy to include the comments. We have 3 hands up. We'll start with Edgar. Okay, thank you. I was just going to propose the recommendation, and I'm happy to propose it, including what Owain and John have agreed upon. Do we have a seconder for that? For that recommendation? Owain has seconded. John? You're on mute, John. It's not that I don't disagree. I think if they do request to speak, I think they should be able to listen to the whole meeting. I think it should be virtually live, because we do get funded by the public, and it's only right that the public know our opinions and what we do in these meetings, because especially if there's a local member and an elected member, we have to look after the people as well. I would like to see it broadcasted live, although anybody who wishes to speak should be able to listen to the whole meeting. Brian?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with the amendments that Owen suggested. I have one question to do with paragraph 2.3, which indicates that leaflets are sent to community councils, or have been sent to community councils. The question is, how often is that exercise repeated? You know, it was once 10 years ago, councillors change, clerks change. I'm wondering whether it's something that is worth doing at least after every period of election for parish or community councils.
On that question, Brian, we meet the town and community councils annually, so probably that's the best opportunity just to redistribute the leaflets on this protocol every year. So come into town and community councils, they may be reminded of how we operate this. So yeah, annually. I don't think it's done annually now. but that's the I think that's the best way of doing it moving forward. We do meet manually.
Absolutely, that's fine. Yeah.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr, Jonathan.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. I can't see any other hands up. Everybody happy with Owen's proposal? Can I just come in on one point that was said there? Especially for members that have been appointed by Welsh Government, other councillors know that we're not a local member on the park. We're representing Gwynedd Council on the park, just like Conwy represents Conwy on the park. I just wanted to make that point, really. Can I come in just to correct that? I represent the independent group on Gwynedd Council, not just Gwynedd Council. If there is an independent member, often they ask us for assistance. It may be different for Plaid Cymru, but that's how the independent group operates. Okay, we'll go on to the vote. Proposed by Owen, seconded as well. Can we have a show of hands? Either the green hand or the blue hand is easier. We can count it easily. Everybody in favour? Can you press the blue hand, please? Thank you. Okay, thank you. On to enforcement matters. Item 8 for information. Does anybody want to raise anything? Edgar? I wasn't able to put my hand down. Apologies for that. Wyn? Did you want to come in? Yes, thanks, Chairman. I just wanted to ask a quick question regarding the first item on page 17, land for camping by Waterloo Bridge. Any further information on that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, Alice Totem, who obviously is the compliance officer, is not able to join us today, but she has provided me with updates on several of the cases if they're raised. This particular one, she has advised that contact has actually been made. Obviously, they've received the letter, and the matter is currently being discussed at the moment.
Okay, diolch, Jane. Iawn, diolch yn fawr.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Alwyn? You're on mute, Alwyn. It was an old hand that I had up. Apologies. Tracy? An old hand, apologies. Okay, can't see any more hands. Brian, did you want to come in? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yes, I don't know whether you're taking these page by page, but I was looking at number 50 on page 32.
Yes,
which is the Nanai Hall, and I was a little bit intrigued that certain discussions were taking place, but there wasn't much information there. I'm wondering if there is any further verbal information that could be shared with the committee about progress on getting the works done there.
Iawn. Cyn mynd I fan'na, Brian, ga I fynd trwy'r tudalennau?
Before we discuss that, can we just run through the pages and then
Okay.
we'll raise the matter when it comes up, if that's okay. Page 18, anything? 19? 20? 21? 22? 23? 24? 25? 26? 27? 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. Brian.
Yes, I just wondered if there was any more information with regard to that. It's been discussed several times in recent committees, and it's obviously a very serious situation. I'm just wondering whether there is any further update on that which is given in the report.
Thank you. In respect to Nanai, obviously there are discussions ongoing. It's in relation with CADU and so forth. I think in terms of the external survey that we've had, it has sort of confirmed that obviously the hall is in a bad situation, and to the extent that there's various ways and means that we can look in trying to safeguard it for the future in terms of repair wise and taking immediate remedial action in respect to that. And it's that a point that we're at, because potentially the financial implications are quite extensive. And so we need to make them balance all that in terms of the actual process and which route we go down in terms of sort of emergency remedial repairs, or whether it's a case that we go down a potential CPO route, so forth. There's various sort of parameters that we need to look at, and that's why we're in the process of discussing those and which is the best way forward with that.
And is the intention to have that done before the winter so that any either emergency work or protective work is done before the bad weather?
This is certainly something that we're trying to look at and seeing the best way forward in terms of sort of in respect to the repair and the weather in terms of of obviously the bad weather coming forward in the winter. One of the things we have looked at is in terms of sort of scaffolding and putting some kind of covering over. The costing of that in itself is very expensive, and it's just weighing the balance in terms of, say, what repairs are actually the best value sort of for any funding that is put forward to that. So it's at that stage is trying to ascertain what the best situation is in terms of, as I say, safeguarding it and making sure that the money is put to the most obviously best use for what we can do with the building.
Thank you.
There
is a matter here as well regarding managing expectations. We do have an owner here who is not very proactive. He's pretty difficult to work with, and it's difficult to have a solution. I'm aware that the community feels strongly, as you would expect, about this building, but there isn't any easy solution, and there is certainly no cheap solution either. And anything we would want to do would be very expensive. Jane has taken a drone video. We'll be sending we sent a drone up, and I think Jane has a quick video on that. I don't know if you want to see it. Maybe you don't have time today. Jane, that may not be possible, but there is no easy solution, and we do have to manage the community's expectations as well as everybody else's. We can't resolve this easily. Owain? Can I suggest that we have a specific report on this, including the video? Everybody in agreement with that, I'm sure? Show of hands. Thank you very much. On to page, 36 in the English. What? Oh, 35 in the English version, and that's it. So on to 106 agreements for information. Pimp for the Velin to get rid of the agreement. Did you know anything about that, Jane? Anything further to add? For the Felin?
We have retracted the local condition. As you know, we're trying, when there's a case to be made, we've won 7 of 8 appeals on this in the past, and there are we have also lost 7 or 8. So we won about 7 and lost about 7. So it is a matter. It's down to the value of the house and how much it can contribute to affordability. That's the test. So I'm afraid. So it's not just under local condition. There's no planning a condition for that. And now, although we're in discussions with the government on that. So the conclusion that the officer came to in this case, but there was no planning purpose to it, that we would have failed really in appeal. We took the commuted sum money in this place so that we can invest that commuted sum for affordable housing locally, but unfortunately we lost that appeal on the appeal. How many of those types of appeals are left in the back? I'm not sure. They come up from time to time, don't they? But I'm not sure how many are out there. We have raised the question again. I think it's going to be difficult to try and know where they all are, you know, back to the 80s really, with some of these planning permissions. It is something I want to review possibly again. As I say, we have been quite good at, a lot of authorities don't protect these, they just let them go because there's no planning there, but we have won 7 appeals on appeals, and we tend to know when to go for them. We've got quite a good record on that count. I do think that because of the market situation, the market, housing markets, and the crisis that we're in possibly at the moment, the fact that the government are quite keen to listen to this argument at the moment, I think that it's an opportunity for us possibly to raise this matter following all of the discussions and the need for local market housing, not affordable. It's something that we are discussing with the government at the moment. So possibly we need to review how these are dealt with to look into the future. Right, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I've had a similar discussion to this with the case local to us, and it's concerning that the principle of if somebody spends a considerable amount of money on a house, that it's easier for them to raise that condition that when somebody don't spend considerable amount of money on the house, and that principle is wrong. Can I move you, Chairman, that and the authority write to the Minister to raise the concerns about this? I agree with Jonathan. I feel that there's possibly some change in Cardiff, but that we need some more pressure just to raise awareness on this type of problem, because we want to keep local conditions and across the sector, not just not smaller houses. Right. Okay. Thank you. Anybody seconding that proposal? That we write to the government. Edgar. Okay. Everybody in agreement? Raise hands. Show hands. Yeah. Thank you. Carried then. Alwyn. You're on mute. Thank you very much. Yes, I've raised this matter before. This local condition condition is traditionally be used to protect the language, hasn't it? You know, taken for granted that there's a good chance that somebody local would speak Welsh, but now the census is going to show that this isn't true anymore. You know, it doesn't mean that local means that somebody's going to be a Welsh speaker. So in that sense, I think, and I think there's a momentum, as you referred to, Jonathan, that there's a momentum on a number of levels now to do something about this. Michael Williams, our friend from Pembrokeshire, even joining in the debates, saying that we need to force holiday homeowners to sell their house, for example. You know, that I think that we should, in fact, put pressure that the language is a planning factor, is a planning consideration. That aim is to protect our communities and protect the Welsh language. So in that respect, maybe this condition is a business that's finished its days. But I think that we need something in its place. And I think that Welsh language being central to the planning system is a way out of it. Are the politicians, do they have the stomach to do that? I don't know, but I think we should, as an authority, with a situation that demographics that we have here, that we should put pressure for this to happen. Thank you, Alwyn. Judith? Thank you. Yes, I agree. But also, of course, we understood, didn't we, that Welsh Government were going to make a statement about the housing crisis by today, end of June. They'd said, that's what they said. So is it appropriate that we therefore write to ask what the new date is, or something on those lines? Yes, we'll see what comes. It was supposed to come this afternoon. I'm not sure whether things come. We'll see. But what everybody has said is spot on, isn't it? I just can't see anybody else with hands up. So we'll move on to the next one. Question I have here again. Conversion to open market dwelling. What's this one? Mr. Chairman, the application has been refused. We are right, okay. They aren't proceeding with the application. Okay, thank you. We'll go on to planning applications that were determined. Questions here? Yes. The second down. Utica, Charles Fynydd buildings. I don't know which ones is going to be resolved first, developed first. Is it me or this one and me leaving the authority? But the question for Jonathan and Jay. There are over 2 years now since we've been waiting for a response. And do we know what the attitude of the applicant is towards this? Or is it better that we just reject the application and let them move on? It's reasonable, isn't it? Mr. Chairman, I am putting pressure monthly on them, but they don't want to proceed with the application. They are asking for the government to ask them for more details. They said in the last month that they wouldn't be moving with this any further. Right, thank you. Brian?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, page 39, the last one there. I note the date is October 2019. And I know obviously there would have been some difficulties last year, but with possibly field work and so on and so forth. But I just don't know why it seems to be taking so long, and whether, you know, what the stage of the process is with that application.
Thank you. Is that in respect to Ynys Court? That application, the delays there are obviously ecological issues, and it's in relation to some rare geese that are down on the Dubby, and it's in terms of sort of the assessments that have been given in terms of that. Obviously, they've got to demonstrate that it's not going to, the development's not going to disturb those geese. The geese are sort of particularly rare geese that come, like, I don't know, sorry, the exact, which ones they actually are, but they're sort of, I understand that they only visit the Dovey, and this is why that there's been, this has been the delay with this one. It's been collating all the information because they're fairly unique, as I understand, so.
Thank you.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr. Awn ni ymlaen i dalen 40.
Moving on to page 40. Last but one here, Noddfa Harlech, erection of 4 self-catering, 3-story self-contained holiday lets. There was a building there, an old hotel. What's happening there? Yes, this is connected with Nova Hotel, which is above the site, but they have introduced assessments, but they came back to say that it wasn't sufficient. So they've appointed a new agent. There's somebody new doing the assessments, and we hopefully will receive it this week. Traditions have been once I receive the assessment, we will move on with the application. Right, thank you. Any questions from anybody else on it? If not, we'll move on to page 41, list of background papers. Page 42, supplementary planning guidance, planning on the Welsh language. Sean Roberts, taking this one. Thank you very much. Yes, so the background paper, it's a supplementary planning and guidance, planning on the Welsh language. This paper went out to September the 2nd, 2020, when it came out. So we had a working party then to discuss the paper and to discuss it further and make any changes following that. Following that working party and the changes made, the supplementary planning guidance went out for consultation 6-week period, and now I've included the changes that have been made in the forward report to this, and you will see the appendix on the comments that were presented during the consultation in this pack as well. I don't know whether anybody has any comments or questions about this paper or any further amendments, but in terms of next steps or recommendations, the recommendation is for members to approve this draft version of the supplementary planning guidance and following any changes to adopt them. Right, thank you very much, Sean. Does anybody want to move so we accept this? Alan's hand is up, I see. Thank you very much, Sean. Without repeating what was discussed earlier on, I want to know that you were waiting for a statement. There's a momentum, as I said, from this housing business crisis, you know, or in our areas. But it has been an increase. There's an awareness, a new awareness that's happened during the last few months. And should we incorporate any changes that come from the government into this plan, or has it been set in stone, as it were, and that it can be amended? I mean, soon. Of course, we can change it, but is it possible to change it overnight, as it were? Should the policies from Welsh governments change? In terms of the supplementary planning guidance, I'm not sure, having not seen or knowing, I'm not sure how much we could include in this, because this is, in a way, it's an extension of to the policy in the local development plan that we have, and in an extension of that. So those then are an extension in a way, or are restricted from what governments they put forward. So I don't know, I can't answer in terms of the plan and the policy. I suppose we need to wait for that development before we can make any changes from the governments. It is a very frustrating situation for somebody who's missed out on personally on houses and been outbid over the last few months. It's frustrating, but in terms of the supplementary planning guidance, I don't think, from what I understand anyway, that there'll be many changes that we can make to this, but it'll be something that we will need to take up seriously during the next review of the plan, which will start, I think, in the next year, I think. Yep. I'm asking in the context of what's happened in Gwynedd Council at the beginning of the week. They're going to put pressure to speed up the process of of these policies in Gwynedd.
Dwi
Yes,
yn delio
I
efo-
know. I don't deal with personally with those, but other officers within policy. They are doing a bit of work on housing and looking into what we can do now, what we could do after the review or during the review period. So there's some considerable amount of work going on from the housing department side of things and what we can do. As you say, this is something that's quite urgent. Yes, thank you.
Is it possible that I could, sorry, is it possible that I could just sort of come in on that respect? Obviously, we've got the annual monitoring report that is going to come in, is going to be coming up this October. So that would obviously provide an opportunity at looking all these issues in terms of obviously seeing what the report sort of covers in terms of what's happened this last year.
Iawn, diolch Jane.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Edgar. Yes, this is draft, is it? At the moment, yeah. Then if everybody's happy today, then it'll be adopted as the final one and used as material planning considerations then. I'm not as optimistic as Alwyn with that many changes are going to be made, but you know, it's difficult. I'm going to listen, see what other people have got to say before I make my decision. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to enforce what Sean is saying, you know, this is end of a process of adopting quite a technical document, how we carry out our policy, not the policy itself. You know, so it will be certainly a 2-3 years before we are able to change the policy context. But I don't foresee Welsh Government changing the policy planning Wales specifically for the housing side of things. So that's unfortunate, but they've just adopted the new one. So I'm ready to move, propose the recommendation, move the recommendation. The only comment that I've made to Sean beforehand is the semantics, linguistic semantics in Appendix B in when you effects, when you don't deal with absolutes when you look at effects, side effects. I think it's a combination of what's been changed, often changed and the original version, how a development is likely to affect is that the correct terminology to be used in this context. And I'll ask you, Mr. Chairman, to say which one is correct, how will or how would its affect. Yeah, thank you. Owen, Ivor. Thank you very much. Yes, I have a question. When is the information going to be available from the last census for us to have more detailed statistics in the policy, really? In terms of, I'm not sure what kind of effect the COVID and things like that have had on this, but in the last census, 2011, it was held, and we started to get the information through specific to the park around 2013. So it was some 2 years from the survey itself to receiving those specific reports for the park. And when was it held? The last census, March of this year. Yeah. So you're talking about possibly a year and a half, another year and a half, in fact, before we get the results from that, possibly. Right, thank you. Okay. Could I second then the recommendation, please? Excellent. Edgar, your hands up. I was going to second the recommendation after here. I can't see any other hands up for speaking, so we'll go to the vote. That's been moved and seconded. Could you show your hands, please? That's been carried. Thank you very much. Take your hand, step back down, please. Right, then we'll go on to page 87. approved planning applications for information. Any questions here?
Elen, 87,
Page 87, 88, 89,
90,
and 90.
wedyn, awn ni ymlaen.
And then we'll move on to refused, applications refused.
Cwestiwn, Anna?
Any questions here on page 91,
90,
92,
Dyna ni.
and there we are. And then what we have now are the results of the appeals, planning appeals. Jonathan, do you want to come in on these? I don't intend to present anything here, but I'm happy to pick up any matters. Obviously, that you have two quite significant one in Nant Cwmbrani Saf, where we had quite a difficult decision as a committee, and that appeal has gone with the applicant. And then we had the one at the land by the cemetery in Dinas Mawddwy, as we expected in a way, because of lots of long-term matters here. And the third one, this is an appeal. It's quite a complex one. Possibly I'm not going to come in on this one, but I'm happy to pick up any comments that you may have.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr.
Right, thank you. Does anybody want to say anything here?
Os nad oes, nawn ni-
If not, we will. Owain, your hand's up there. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yes, just wanted to the responsive officers to on Nant Cwmbran Isaf that the inspector had what he was trying to do was to measure the effect of the extension against what was there currently, the original house, and just to have a the officers' views, because we had based our argument on the original building. Yeah. Are there implications for us in terms of consideration of planning applications? What was going through my mind was if an inspector is going to make similar decisions in the future, it does raise the question of, if you have developments from and on housing and extensions, and how are we going to measure or come to a decision about on an application if the inspector is going to make his decision based on what's there currently, rather than what was there originally. There's a weakness in the policy. Oh, yeah, Jonathan. Well, there's nothing that say that you can build what you want up to the original house. We did have a policy years ago, that you could extend by a third, but we've made away with that. So the same thing happens in Gwynedd. You can build a mansion house now. Go for £1 million plus. Certainly we need to look at that policy. Jonathan, I'm not sure where there's a weakness in the policy. That's up to you as members next time we revise the plan. But I'm not sure that there's so much a problem with the policy myself. That's up to you to consider next time we come to reviewing it. The policy, essentially what it's trying to do with extensions is to retain the extension subordinates to the original building. That's quite a reasonable principle, I think, and it allows you to go up to the size of the original dwelling, but not more. 100% then, 100%. You can go up to 100%. So it shouldn't be any larger than that. And the line of the roof line should be slightly lower than the original house, and the I would expect for it to be obvious that the house is an extension and it looks subordinate in comparison with the original dwelling. It's a planning principle. It's a good planning principle, I think. It works well. And, you know, this is something, a principle that's used not just in this authority, but, you know, many other authorities use the same principle. We felt in this case that hadn't been followed, and possibly what the inspector used in this case was the fact that they had the conservatory there at the front of the house, which had affected the house, the original house, the traditional house, so much, you know, that affected the view of the inspector. But that's something for us to be aware of, possibly in the future. But remember that we still operate a system of all applications on their merits. So that doesn't change anything. It doesn't set out a precedent on how to decide on applications. This is one application, you know, and the system does encourage us to look at each application on their own merits. So we have to try and just use this policy. The policy still stands, it's still right, and it's I think it's quite a sensible policy, in fact, I think. But possibly what this does raise is the importance of services. This went up without planning. It had no this is a good example of the compliance service and the role that it plays, and the risks of not having those resources in enforcement services. So having more enforcement officers, then they are very hence they are yeah, few and far between. Yes. Can I come back, Ms. Chairman? If so, then I understand that as members that there are mixed feelings about this specific case, but legally speaking, has the inspector put the pressure, right emphasis on the policy, and you know, is there room to challenge the decision? I think it's important for us to look forward to see if there is enough, is there a legal challenge here that needs to be happening? Well, we need to look at this. You know, we had one thing, because of the situation, we didn't feel that it was one that we wanted to challenge legally. I think there are matters here that we don't quite understand how he's come to the conclusion. I'll put it like that. And I've spoken with our departments, review any appeals that we have. It's useful for us to have to learn lessons, and we will sit down and as a team and discuss this. Certainly there are matters here that we don't quite understand how the interpretation and how that interpretation works against the policy that we've adopted, the local development plan. So maybe not something for us to challenge, but certainly something I think that for us to ask a question about, possibly. You know, I think it would be wouldn't be a bad idea for us to ask the question, how did you come to the conclusion on a few of those points without challenging him legally? We might not get a response, but it might be wouldn't be a bad thing. From that guidance, I'm ready to move that. We do ask questions of the inspector, and that give the chairman. And does anybody second that proposal?
Yeah, I would second that, Chair.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. So Brian, you can come in now.
Thank you. Yeah, mine was not to do with the point that Owen raised. It was to do with the point that Jonathan brought up, actually, over the enforcement side of things, and it does bring into very sharp focus how that process isn't managed. I know resources are part of that, and I don't know, when I say managed, that's perhaps not the right word, but how we go about spotting work that is clearly out with what we would like to see, because that had obviously been in place for some years to get a certificate of lawful development. And this whole case hangs upon something which perhaps shouldn't have been built in the first place. So it raises some very fundamental questions there in my mind, as well as the ones that Owen has raised about the way the inspector has made the decision, but about how we ensure that as many as possible of breaches that are going on are picked up. And I don't really know, I don't have anything to specifically suggest with that, because I'm not entirely sure how it works now, other than somebody ringing up and say, we're not very happy about what's going on here. Have they got permission?
It's primarily a resource issue. Jane, I'm sure, will want to come in and maybe pick up on that point.
Yeah, I was just going to say that obviously we're very much relying on members of the public ringing in and raising sort of the awareness of issues where there's breaches of planning control. Unfortunately, we just simply haven't got the resources to proactively go out and monitor the area on a constant basis, which obviously fundamentally that would be the best thing that we could do. And it's sort of obviously difficult situation, obviously for that conservatory on the front of Nan Cumbra and East South. It was there for 4 years because obviously it got a certificate of lawful use, so it became immune from any enforcement action. It's a very difficult one to sort of gauge and sort of work out what are the best processes in terms of the compliance of National Park, in terms of being able to sort of actively go and enforce and pick up these breaches of planning control. Just the fact that the area is vast as well. So we're very much reliant on members of the public in advising us on what's happening.
It maybe raises, I'm not challenging that specifically, but it maybe raises a question for us as an authority as to whether we are happy with the balance that we have at the moment. I know this is a particular one-off, but there are other cases which we see from time to time that come up. And maybe it presents us with the opportunity to ask the question as to whether we need to reflect on that, as to whether we are able to manage the process as robustly as a national park should.
Iawn, diolch Brian.
Thank you, Brian. There's a weakness, huge weakness in the planning situation from Welsh Government side of things. If you build a house, you build the house without planning, and if 4 years have passed, I think it's 4 years, Jonathan, yeah, and they've not been caught, you can retain the house, and that's what's happened with this building in front of the conservatory in front of this house. There's a huge weakness there. Why do we need that period of time at all? Before somebody's caught. That's a point we should raise with the government. I think about this. The shed, the large shed at the back. Is there planning on that? It's an agricultural shed, but if they keep all, it's not really. They keep all sorts of other things in it, don't they? I don't know. Okay, right, there we are. Anybody else want to speak? If not, we will. Alwyn. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking at the more positive side of things, the situation is conveyed in point 9, but from the inspector that the extension, whatever your views are, it has improved the view, the look of the original house, and has improved the architecture of the building as well. It's also he notes that the extension has sustainable, does fulfill the government's sustainable aims. So there are positives here, but at the end of the day, we need to discuss each application individually on its own merits, and the inspector itself says that in another situation, a similar situation, they might come to a different decision, which is fair enough. That's the principle of the whole system of deciding on planning applications. In terms of phrasing of further questions, I'm a bit worried about the effect of adding another cloud over this family. You know, I do feel that it has been and I accept that they are a lot at fault for what's happened, but it has been a strain, emotional strain on the whole family. And I do feel that if we keep on at it, that we increase this. I think we should draw a line and beneath it now, and learn lessons by all means. But at the end of the day, I think that we need to close it up now and see what happens really to the future. But in terms of Nalcomranisa, I think we need to let it be now as it is from now on. Thank you. Thank you, Alwyn. But as it has been finished, hasn't it? It's completed. All that we've passed here is that we're going to say that we're, could I just come in there? The proposal is that we ask questions to have better understanding to the future. So it's not going to affect the this decision at all, but it's going to give better understanding for us as a planning authority to be able to assess what is likely to be successful to the future. So that's the just the principle. Just to answer Alwyn there, the intention is that we drag the matter out from Branislav on that has come to an end. We accept that, but as an authority, we just want a better understanding of what the reasoning is of the inspector in this case. Right, thank you, John. Yes, I was going to agree with Alwyn. Not drag this on the family. You have been through enough without us adding more stress onto them. So if it's not going to go on, then it's fine. It's just a matter of an open matter, and that you don't draw this family through it all. We've had the answer, haven't we, from you, one there? Yeah, Edgar. Your hand was up. And you're on mute. There we go. No, it's down. My hand's down. Why is it still up then? Right, there we are. We've finished, unless anybody else wants to speak. There's a proposal made, and it's been seconded, yeah, but it hasn't gone to the votes yet. So, yep, okay, everybody in favour of the proposal? Show hands, please. That's carried. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. There we are. We've finished. We now move on to the next committee, yeah, which is, that's the intention, that we go on to the working party to deal with some matters, possibly the matters that we might need to